Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest economic collapses in history, the Great Depression. But we're not just going to give you a list of causes. Nope. We're going to use a surprisingly simple formula to diagnose the health of the entire country and show you exactly why it all fell apart. So, here's the big question. How does a nation that's basically the most prosperous in the world just collapse, seemingly overnight? That's the huge paradox of America in the early 20th century. I mean, the country was flying higher than it ever had before, but what most people didn't realize was that it was all built on an incredibly fragile foundation. I mean, just look at this contrast. It is absolutely staggering. You've got the Roaring '20s on one side, this decade of just wild, unchecked optimism where the American dream felt totally real and within reach for everyone. And then bam, the 1930s. A decade of pure despair, defined by breadlines and dreams that were just completely shattered. So what on earth went so wrong? Well, to really get to the bottom of this historical mystery, we need a new kind of tool. We're going to use this really powerful framework. Let's call it the formula of everything. It's a simple way to measure the health of any complex system, whether that's a small startup or, an entire civilization. Okay, so the first piece of the puzzle is V for population. This is basically the human engine of any society. It's the people, their growth, and the energy that comes from new blood, like immigration. Think of it as the system's raw human power. Next up, we've got R for resources. Now, if the population is the engine, then resources are the fuel. This covers all of a nation's assets, not just the obvious stuff like money and factories, but also the intangible things like credit and savings, the whole shebang. Then there's T for time. This one represents a system's stability, its momentum. Has it been growing nice and steady for years? Or is it just bouncing from one crisis to the next? Time is really a measure of its track record, its reliability. And here we have Q for quality of life. You could say this is the real output of the system. Are people doing well? Do they have opportunities? Are their basic needs met? It's the ultimate report card on how well the system is actually taking care of its people. And finally, we have M for mission. Now, this might just be the most important variable of them all. It's the glue that holds the entire system together. It's that shared purpose, that national story, the belief that gets everybody rowing in the same direction. So here's how it all comes together. The goal is balance. When you add up all 5 of these parts, V, R, T, Q, and M, a healthy, stable system should have a score of right around 5. If you get a number that's way too high or way too low, well, that's when you know you're headed for some serious trouble. All right, so with our new formula in hand, let's play doctor. Let's diagnose America right before the crash. What did its score look like in the final days of the Roaring '20s? Okay, so check this out. The numbers here tell such a fascinating story. Population, time, quality of life, they're all looking pretty good, hovering right around 1.0. Resources are high at 1.2, but notice that little warning, a lot of it was speculative. But the real flashing red light? Look at mission, a score of 1.8. The American belief in itself had turned into this overheated, totally unsustainable cult of endless success. And this right here, shows you the core of the problem. You add all those numbers up, and you get a 6.0. The system wasn't just healthy, it was overloaded. It was dangerously out of balance, like a tire pumped with way, way too much air. It was just waiting to pop. And when a system is stretched that thin, it doesn't take much to bring the whole thing crashing down. So what happened when that fragile bubble finally burst? Well, the collapse was just breathtakingly fast, and it was absolutely brutal. The stock market basically evaporated, wiping out fortunes. 1 out of every 4 workers was unemployed. The American dream literally turned into a national nightmare. And our formula shows just how deep that failure really went. Look at this. Population is the only thing that really held steady, but everything else, resources and quality of life just cratered, all the way down to 0.2. And mission, the faith people had in the system itself, was completely shattered, dropping to a measly 0.3. The new grand total was 2.8. This wasn't a recession. This wasn't a downturn. This was a deep, fundamental systemic crisis. The nation was running on fumes, with its most important parts either broken or just barely working. So, how do you fix a system that's so completely broken? Well, the answer wasn't some single magic bullet. It took a very deliberate, very targeted intervention to recalibrate the entire formula. And this is where the New Deal comes in, and frankly, why it was so brilliant. It wasn't just a random assortment of programs, it was a systemic fix. You can see it right here. It targeted the weakest variables head on. It fixed resources by creating jobs. It fixed quality of life with social safety nets. And, maybe most importantly, it fixed the national mission by giving everyone a new shared purpose. We're going to get through this together. And by the end of the decade, the results were just undeniable. Take a look at the scores now. Resources, quality of life, and mission were all climbing back from the absolute brink, pushing the whole system back towards a healthy, balanced state. It was working. The new total score was nearly 4.9, almost a perfect 5. Stability was restored, and it wasn't by accident. It was by design. The system was back in balance, and it was ready to face whatever came next. But, this isn't just a fun history lesson about the 1930s. The real power here, the real takeaway, is what this kind of systems-level thinking can teach us today. I mean, just imagine for a second. What if the leaders back in the 1920s had a dashboard just like this one? Could they have seen the disaster coming? They would have seen that the mission gauge was deep in the red zone and that their resources were built on a house of cards. And that's the key lesson here. Systems don't just fall apart all at once. They start to fail when one or two of their key parts slip into the danger zone. So, this formula isn't some dusty relic from the past. It's a timeless diagnostic tool. It gives us a framework to measure the health of our own companies, our own communities, even our own nations. It helps us spot those hidden risks before they explode into full-blown crises. Which, of course, leaves us with one final and maybe pretty provocative question. If we applied this very same formula, population, resources, time, quality of life, and mission, to our world right now, what would the numbers tell us? What is our system score today?